Alrighty everyone, welcome back, and as we approach the very end of March of 2023, we got a couple of weeks to go until Disney begins to ramp up their marketing for Star Wars Celebration that's going to take place over in London, and really promoting everything that's going to be done over there, including new announcements, new reveals related to the canon by Jon and Dave, and a whole lot more on the table as well. This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future Star Wars updates. I'm also on Twitter at Mike01. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support. Now, given that we have a lot of things happening with The Mandalorian Season 3, and of course, the Ahsoka Tano show, and on top of that we got Mando 4 that Jon and Dave have been writing behind closed doors constantly, they really are trying to expand and broaden their horizons and to really adapt a lot of stories from live-action material. You know, I should say Legends material to be adapted into live-action. So there's a lot of things coming out of that, and they really know exactly, you know, what they are trying to achieve to really satisfy fans around the globe. Now, on top of this, what's even all the more intriguing has a lot to do with Kathleen Kennedy. Now, as you all have been very well informed, Kathleen Kennedy has not been having the best time with the ACOLYTE and Skeleton Crew due to all the setbacks and delays that were caused by her, and she would refuse to own her mistakes and her problems that she caused. And that really caught up to her because now Jon and Dave are helping out with the ACOLYTE and Skeleton Crew as requested by Disney executives to come back on board and help stabilize those shows to really make sure that they are going to be at least, at the very least, decent Star Wars shows for, of course, Disney+. Now that brings us to the next big thing about what Kathleen Kennedy is currently going through. And so with Kathleen Kennedy currently struggling with both the ACOLYTE and Skeleton Crew, and especially now that Jon and Dave came on board to help fix around 40% of each project, Kennedy is currently going through a very tough phase right now as parts of her vision of both shows are getting diminished in certain areas and causing more drama behind the scenes of those shows. Now, it's noted that Kennedy is preparing and wants to quit and leave from the Skeleton Crew series for starters midway through production, and that this is all due in part for, of course, to the overly toxic environment that she had caused, that she does not really find any way, of course, to fix, and that she actually cannot handle the stress that is mounting every single day, and that it's more to handle. Kennedy is reportedly planning to leave Skeleton Crew by this May altogether, and will be leaving everything up to Jon Watts for post-production, and whatever accidental filming, of course, and additional filming is needed. Now, unless there is some kind of course correction, Kennedy is getting ready to leave the series and has not been happy one bit by Jon and Dave helping out and erasing some of her concepts. Now, let me pause here quickly for one moment before I get to the next piece, is that one thing about Skeleton Crew that we are very well aware of is the fact that Jon and Dave are already very busy erasing a lot of scenes that Kathleen Kennedy initiated for the show, and that's something that she's very not happy with. You know, she's really not taking that well, and she's been complaining to Disney executives about all of this. It's been a very tough situation and scenario behind closed doors. Now, the other thing that I do have to point out here real quick is that we know that Jude Law, the main actor that's playing the main character in the show, has been going through a lot of reshoots himself for Skeleton Crew. There's been a lot of, you know, transitions and adjustments happening for Skeleton Crew that's really creating a very big, like I said before, amount of stress on Kathleen Kennedy. She just wants to leave at this point, midway through production. Now, what really made her tick, we're going to be diving into that in just a second, and it does have a lot to do with Jon and Dave Filoni, alright? Now, as you all know, Jon and Dave are all about really just keeping things very simple, going back to the basics, keeping George Lucas's vision intact. That's what they're all about, right? That's what they want to keep alive. And so, what recently happened about the whole Kathleen Kennedy situation with Skeleton Crew and why she is preparing to leave is that, well, she is also planning to leave the show to focus more on the ACOLYTE, which is to be Kennedy's grand series, and part of leaving her legacy behind as she departs for Lucasfilm later on this year. John Watts is planning to take over as producer for Skeleton Crew once Kennedy leaves during post, and that the real thing that triggered this response from her had to do with the fact that both John and Dave are including more Ahsoka scenes into Skeleton Crew in order to connect it nicely with The Mandalorian, since this too is a post-Return of the Jedi period. Now again, given that we have a lot of things happening with Skeleton Crew, we have John and Dave connecting it to The Mandalorian even all the more so now. This is all a part of their plan to really kind of just give something very special to the fans, to really connect it more to The Mandalorian and their surrounding shows. After all, it is a Mandoverse era project, make no mistake about that. However, on top of this, Leslie Headland, surprisingly, the writer of The Acolyte, pressured Kennedy to stay on the project, but that made no change at all, and Kennedy is planning to go all out on post-production and reshoots for the Acolyte series to make sure that her vision will come to light to create new fans. Now, Skeleton Crew isn't the only major obstacle that Kennedy is going through. It's also everything related to the Acolyte series. The Acolyte has been going through a lot of sets getting taken down and new sets being built up that cost Disney hundreds of thousands of dollars just for the sets to be built again. And it was a waste of money, of course. They didn't have to do that, but they did because Kennedy caused a lot of setbacks and delays and story changes where the initial sets made no sense to what they were filming. So that's the biggest problem with the Acolyte 2, is a lot of the in-studio shots are problematic. Meanwhile, the on-location shots, they are moving along quite smoothly, but everything else, not so good right now. Now, the thing about Skeleton Crew, in case you guys have been very much unaware, originally this was supposed to come out in like June, and this is very unlikely. Then they got pushed over to like the end of this year, give or take around October or December, right around that time frame. And it still remains around that time frame unless they fall into more delays and setbacks. It could easily be pushed over to January or February of 24 without a doubt. Which, you know what, I mean, you don't want to have a shift in schedule at all, whether you like or hate something or not anticipating anything, because it also creates a ripple effect on the scheduling of shows that you might like. For example, Mandalorian Season 4 or the Ahsoka Tano series Season 2, that's going to already, of course, take place after the first one, and they're already working hard on a follow-up. So anyways, the fact that Kennedy is going through this, and really going through with it all, just goes to show you that she really does seem to resent John and Dave's presence and what kind of changes they are making, and that she cannot fix her own mistakes, and so the only answer to that problem for her is to leave it all behind and put it in the hands of John Watts. So Watts is going to take over as producer, like I said before, for Skeleton Crew right around this May, alright? In the first or second week of May, this is all going to go down. So anyways, guys, fill me in below in the comments what you all have to say about this. You know, what do you think about the whole Skeleton Crew situation for Kennedy? And if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the great and kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.
From night to moon, we hear them moans again. No.